டிடி நேயர்களுக்கு எனது அன்பார்ந்த வணக்கங்கள். உங்கள் எல்லாரையும் மீண்டும் ஒரு சங்கம் நிகழ்ச்சியில் வரவேற்கிறதுல எனக்கு மிகவும் மகிழ்ச்சி. இன்றைக்கு எனக்கு ஒரு ஸ்பெஷலான நாள். இன்றைக்கு என்னோட இணைந்திருக்கிற கலைஞர் ஒரு மிகப்பெரிய கலைஞர். அதை விட ஒரு மிகவும் அன்பான ஒரு மனிதர், எல்லாருக்குமே விருப்பமான ஒருவர், எங்களுடைய கார்த்திக் ராமலிங்கம் அவர்கள். வணக்கம் கார்த்திக்.
வணக்கம் ஸ்டீவ்.
இப்படி நலமா இருக்கிறீங்களா?
நீங்க எப்படி இருக்கீங்க?
இருக்கிறோம். So it's a pleasure to have you in this show. Definitely, you are a multi-instrumentalist and a vocal trainer.
Thank you.
And yeah, a lot of people call you their guru, and who are like one of the major artists here in Canada. And அப்படி பார்க்க மிகவும் சந்தோஷம் உங்களை இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியில் வரவேற்கிறதுல. It's a pleasure for me as well, because in a short period of time we became good friends, and I'm very happy to have you here in the show.
I'm very thankful for you to have me here as well on this show, and for TET. I'm very pleased to be here, and thank you for all those kind words. I'd like to talk in Tamil as much as possible, but nadu konja English vanda okay இல்லையா உங்களுக்கு?
ஒரு பிரச்சனையுமே கிடையாது.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much.
நேரடியா நாங்க நிகழ்ச்சிக்கு செல்லலாம். நீங்க நான் ஏற்கனவே சொன்ன மாதிரி ஒரு மல்டி இன்ஸ்ட்ருமெண்டலிஸ்ட். ஸோ உங்களுக்கு எப்படி ஆர்வம் வந்துச்சு? அதாவது இந்த புல்லாங்குழலை நீங்கள் கற்கணும், சாக்ஸோஃபோன் கற்கணும். அதாவது என்ன, இட்ஸ் டூ டிஃப்ரெண்ட் திங்ஸ். இட்ஸ் ஒன் இஸ் மோர் யூஸ்ட் இன் த ஈஸ்டர்ன் மியூசிக், அதாவது எங்களுடைய கர்நாடக சங்கீதத்தில். மற்றது கூட வெஸ்டர்னில் தான் பாய்ப்பினோம். அப்போ உங்களுக்கு எப்படி ஆர்வம் வந்துச்சு ரெண்டு டிஃப்ரெண்டான இசையில் நீங்கள் ஈடுபடணும்?
அது எப்படி வந்ததுன்னு சொன்னோம்னா, ஐ திங்க் இட்ஸ் ப்ராப்ளி ரிலேட்டட் டு த மியூசிக் எக்ஸ்போஜர். வீட்டில் ஹவு வி ஆர் எக்ஸ்போஸ் டு மியூசிக், ஐ திங்க் தட்ஸ் வாட் programmed me in a way. Some people call it weird, but adu veet pinnani could probably be the reason. Chinna vayasula a lot of influence of Indian classical music, film music. My grandmother was predominantly a Carnatic music lover. She studied Carnatic music, so I grew up with her from very young age, 2 years lande. So constantly listening to a lot of classical music. And my father was an ardent lover of all forms of music.
Okay.
So our cassette edithingna Sirgari Govindarajan irukum, aduthathu Beatles irukum, aduthathu Kishore Kumar, appadha innikum I save some of his things. So he had a very eclectic taste for music. I think those exposures, I would probably relate that. And mari or influence veetla irundadnala I was listening to all forms of music, and I fell in love with all forms of music.
உங்க குடும்பத்திலே இசை கலைஞர்களோ பாடகர்களோ
இருக்கிறாங்க. ப்ரொஃபஷனலாக ஒரு பெரிய இன்ஃப்ளூயன்ஸ் எனக்கு சின்ன வயசுலேருந்தே இருந்தது நீங்கள் கேள்விப்பட்டிருப்பீங்க, எஸ்என் சுரேந்தர், singer and dubbing artist. He is my cousin. So he's been a huge influence on my introduction to film music. And I've seen him from when I was 4.5 years. I've watched him and his brother and his 2 sisters perform with their orchestra live. And I used to be fascinated by the way they do the performance. Appalla light music இப்ப மாதிரி நின்னுட்டு பாடுறது இல்ல, கர்நாடிக் மியூசிக் மாதிரி உட்காந்து தான் பாடுவாங்க. ஸோ அந்த இதில் நான் பார்த்துருக்கேன். they were all young children now, but I was very young, so I was a little baby. They'll put me on the stage, backstage.
Okay.
I never used to play with the children. I used to watch the musicians and the singers. That was my craziness on the age. So I still remember some of those episodes.
That's crazy.
That exposure. What I'm saying is those influences could all have caused me to like all forms of music. Ella same கேட்டு வளர்ந்ததுல all forms of music வாசிக்கணும் என்ற ஒரு இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் வந்தது. அப்போது different stages of life, you go through the early stage, kindergarten, school எல்லாம் போகிற மாதிரி. அந்த ஒரு டைமில் there is also different influences from school, your friends, அப்போ வர modern music, popular music எல்லாம் சேர்த்து வரும்போது that also shapes your influence. Definitely. So there is so many influences. I cannot point it to one reason eppadi indha mari way I wanted to study endradhu, but definitely I'll be happy to share all the possible influences. I have a bunch of names I'd like to share. including, of course, artists whom I've been inspired by. As I said, family influence more side.
Yeah.
Adukapram gurus, right? Of course.
Definitely.
They play a major role in shaping what you should do, what they know the or vision eduthu பண்ணுவாங்க. So அந்த வகையில் my gurus, I was very blessed to have some wonderful gurus who gave me the right training, who still giving me the training, the guidance and the advice to take me through this learning process. I'm going through that.
ஆரம்பத்தில் வந்து அப்போ நீங்கள் எந்த இசையை கற்றுக்கொண்டீங்க, எந்த இசை கருவியை நீங்கள் கற்றுக்கொண்டீங்க?
Carnatic music தான் first was allowed for me to learn. When you are growing with as a child with adults, so Carnatic music was what I started learning first formally. I learned Veena initially because I didn't have a flute guru close by. I was very young, so I could not. So they put me under a Veena teacher was close by. So what I used to do was, and the Veena la kattu kudukra swaratha vandu flute la I used to try and play that initially because I could pick up things by ear. In most instruments I would dabble with, and pick up by ear. But formula panadiyum I would like to transfer and do it. So enakku enna mudiyuma I could transfer from Veena learning to flute. I used to do that. Knowing that ultimately at some point I'm going to be focusing on that andra or idu irundhudu. So I would consistently try. It was not easy, especially without a teacher to work with that, but I used to try. That was my
ஆரம்பத்திலிருந்தே உங்களுக்கு புல்லாங்குழல் மேல தான் ஒரு ஆசை.
அது ஒரு strong interest. எப்படி அமைஞ்சது தெரியல எனக்கு. I love the sound of it. I mean, not that I'm partial to anything. I love string instruments, wind instruments. I play a bunch of different instruments. But some of this is probably it's closest to my soul. I think everybody feels that ஒரு instrument ஏதாவது அவங்களுக்கு will be very close to their soul, for some reason. இது என்னன்னு explain பண்றது ரொம்ப கஷ்டம்.
For me, for some reason, it was the drums.
Okay. So as I said, that's what unga vibration and your so many factors, right? That makes a difference in why you choose and you stick on to that and why you make that your. It becomes an extension of you, right? It's part of you. Yes, that's how it became, I think.
So you started with Veena, and then after you shifted to flute, right? So how did you switch to Western music after? Or when did that happen?
I studied in a Catholic school. Okay. So where we had a number of different exposure events for Western music. Although inga schools la kudukra madri, they don't give you the full orchestral ensemble credit curriculum kind of thing. Adella kadiyadu. You must be really very interested to pursue and make your own band. So andha mari varumbodhu I used to as I said, I used to listen to a lot of rock and pop and classic rock and all that. And the school days le or grade 4-5 la irukumbodhu we started a small band in that grade with just 2-3 guitars. We started playing stuff for the school events. That is how it started initially. Then I started listening to little more serious classical music and jazz. So I took formal classical flute studying, and that showed me a huge enormously different spectrum of things happening. As you would see, from the medieval period to the modern music period, we have so many different periods with fantastic composers. Adila I got hooked on to the Baroque period. Bach, Telemann, Handel. Classical wise, I was really hooked on to them, and that although for the examination point of view you have to play all the composers to learn everything, we did that. From a progressive part of myself, I'm still studying Bach's music, I'm still studying Telemann's music, and that is the Western classical influence I had on me. Solid rock influence was there because rock was a big thing in Chennai at that time. Really huge. And you must have heard of Jethro Tull.
Yes.
Ian Anderson. So he was like the guru of rock flute. So listening to him, so there was another dimension of flute playing. So I started listening to him, taking stuff, and we used to do covers of his music.
There was a time where indie pop was very big India.
That's
right?
true. Before that, நான் சொல்றது.
Okay.
Before that, classic rock was big.
Okay.
So a lot of, not too many bands locally there, but few really tight bands were there.
Okay.
And we used to wait for them to have shows and watch the guys play and all that. So on the mari Western influences both from school through the regular stream, right? As I told you, Catholic schools we used to have first Friday mass nadakkum, right? And the first Friday mass normally used to be with just a farfisa organ and the choir singing. So the way we were playing the band, the rock band kind of format, the principal, Father Stephen Bernard was our principal at that time. He was a ardent music lover. He could play all instruments, and he coached me in a number of different music forms. So he took a special interest in me, seeing that I used to be there early in the morning to pick up that music for the mass.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right? So I used to love that way the harmonies were going and all that. So he took a lot of interest in coaching me on how to play for that, how to read the notes for that, and I would watch him train voices, train us, and that gave me a lot of joy doing that. So every first Friday, it became a beat mass with a rock band, right? So we
changed the
format, which was more classical, became a beat mass, and kids loved it. Teachers loved it. It became a totally different experience for them. So bass, drums, guitars, distortion, ellam potu we will have, but very mild, not too noisy, right? So we won't make it. It'll be a little rocky, but still keep the mood intact. That was what we learned at a very young age. That was another strong influence of Western music. So over the period of time, then I got influenced by jazz musicians. So a lot of traditional jazz, like Duke Ellington, Dave Brubeck, Dave Grusson, used to listen to a lot of them, and got inspired by jazz musicians like Grover Washington, Sada Watanabe, all these saxophone players, Hubert Laws, flute players, Benny Goodman, clarinet. So Yungadelan used to listen to a lot of those to study their what they are doing in each of those. So classical jazz, all this was exposed. I mean, I was exposed to all these at different stages of life as I was growing up to the different things. And I think those helped me kind of keep that learning on. There's so much in that music, so much beauty in jazz, so much beauty. Jazz later, so many different subgenres. The traditional Dixieland stuff, then you have the funk jazz kind, and then you have more the progressive rock kind of, which is jazz rock kind of feel. So all these forms fascinated me, but
so you didn't focus on one genre only. You were like all over the place.
I couldn't I couldn't stop myself and say I'll do only this. Unfortunately or fortunately, that was my personality. I loved everything.
But it applies to the instruments as well. So since we were talking about rock music, எனக்கு தெரியும் நீங்க guitar வாத்தியத்தையும் நீங்க வாசிப்பீங்கன்னு. So did you learn it by yourself, or did you learn it during that time you were in the band?
Initially I learnt by self in Sonnalum. It was
Veena.
A little bit from the Veena thing, and also from my seniors in school, right? They were having rock bands. I used to ask them, okay, in the chord progression, enna pandringa? What are you doing for this one? What effect are you using? So I could get mentorship from my seniors, who were all very kind enough to give me all those tips. And one of them, one of the guitarists who was also my guru's senior student, Cheyur Vijay. He's one of the best guitarists we have in Chennai. But he didn't take up to the commercial. He is a commercial musician, but he doesn't like limelight. So he's been away in the backdrop. But he's an amazing guitarist. He was my senior at school, about 6 years senior to me. So people like them, I used to ask for, போய் கேட்டு அவங்களுக்கு when they're in the good mood, ask them for tips on how to play things like that. You learn. And then I took formal Western classical guitar training with my Western guru, Abdul Sattar Master. I studied that for I'm still working on it for many years with him. So that helped me get a little bit stronger with my harmonic arrangements, bass lines, writing music, accompanying scores, arrangement. So that another gave me another body of knowledge to work through.
That was the reason why I asked. And rock music என்னாலே முதல்ல மனசுல வாரது வந்து கிட்டார் தான், லைக் டிஸ்டோர்ட் கிட்டார்ஸ். அதான் உடனே தோணும் எங்களுக்கு, ரைட்? அண்ட் அதே மாதிரி ஜாஸ் அண்டோடனே முதலாவதாக நாங்கள் யோசிக்கிறது எப்பயுமே சாக்ஸஃபோன், அண்ட் ஸோ அதான் கேட்டேன். நீங்கள் அந்த மியூசிக்கில் உங்களுக்கு கூட இன்ஃப்ளூன்ஸ் இருந்த வழியாக உங்களுக்கு அந்த இன்ஸ்ட்ருமெண்ட்ஸ்லேயும் உங்களுக்கு ஆர்வம் கூட இருந்தது இல்லையா? சரி நேயர்களே, கார்த்திக்கிட்ட இருந்து நிறைய இன்ஃபர்மேஷனை நாங்கள் எடுத்து கொண்டிருக்கிறோம். தொடர்ந்தும் கிண்டி இன்னும் அலசி ஆராயலாம் அவருடைய இசைப்பாதையை பற்றி. ஒரு சிறிய இடைவேளை பிறகு உங்களை மீண்டும் சந்திக்கிறேன்.